I don't want to mention the elephant in the room right now, but of course, some things have happened. And so I'm getting a lot of messages, and the atmosphere itself is charged. And so we want to channel that energy and make sure that energy is continuously powering us because it is our energy. Now, I will say I'm not very reactionary. So this bill was actually written before all of this. It was in the works. As you know, Tri Vibes just happened about 2 weeks ago. So we cross over the next 2 weeks. And can we not say, if you just go back and listen to the other Tri Vibes, was that not a perfect, just to be able to put you in the best position for whatever is happening and going on around you, allowing you to stay exactly focused. And also, again, look for, like on the old video game Dragon's Lair, that blinking light to where hey, that's the indicator because that's where I need to move. Also, as I said, I'm not reactionary because what that does is it messes up your timing. When something goes on and then you react to it, that means that you're not obviously busy and doing something else. So generally, if you're in complete alignment with everything that's happening, you'll see exactly why you've been funning on what you're doing and how that ties right into what's happening with these waves of energy, and then how you keep pushing through because of what's happening. Like, it's literally pushing a lot of stuff out of the way and opening up the path for you, while for others, it seems to be confining them and closing up things for them, right? So that's really the realities that we're living in, because we have to pay attention to just the exact awareness that we are living between two realities. Sometimes it's just all about perspective. It's not even just having this high levels of knowledge, high levels of wisdom. It's about just looking at even the simple things that the ancestors have said and then just realize how that would affect you, and dial in on that and connect to that. And so when they say, hey, Earth is like the middle, right? They always tell me it's in the middle of everything. Give me 1 second. I need to make sure that we're transmitting. It looks like it's good here. Let me go ahead and push it live over here also. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay, so they're always saying that, hey, we're in the middle of something. But that if you're in the middle, that means something's on the top, something's on the bottom, right? Duh. Like somebody's like, okay, yeah, Seven, are you gonna start building today or what? But if something can be seen as being different, that means different things exist there. Maybe you would say like a different life form or something that you don't recognize, another space that you could not live in. Like if you go really high up there, you can't breathe. I had a sister's out in Peru, and she was like taking oxygen and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, wow, that must be deep, just being in some place where the environment is not the same, right? And then, of course, yeah, you can't dive, but what is it, like 7 or 8 feet before already your mouth and everything gets sucked in, your eyeballs feel like they get sucked in, and you're like, yo, what's going on? They're like, man, you need to get used to this. So imagine the divers that even go deep, but man, they're still not touching anywhere near where you could go in that space. And that's also why these realms and these realities have these perceived separations, because you would have to use your other body in order to be able to get into those spaces. And so with that being said, though, because we're sandwiched in between, I'm assuming that everybody's sandwiched in between in the big sandwich, but that means that there's oftentimes things that are interacting with us from above, and oftentimes the same thing, but in a different variation, interacting with us from below. And this phenomenon, it could throw us at times, because if we're playing the dual game rather than being balanced, then it actually could catch us up and make us not be able to see exactly what's happening. Okay, so while I'm talking to you, I'm also getting the Starship Enterprise started here, because I just do need that one joy one day that you just push the button and you tell it what to do, and then all the pictures come in. That way I could do what I do. But hey, until then, legacy. We'll do it the legacy way. So first, we're going to touch and connect, because the train has already left the station with whatever part of that my beard that was this morning. I don't know what happened in there. But anyway, the train has left the station. And what that means is that means that we are in this point of the actual realization of unity through the connection. The actual realization of unity through the connection, and the connection being the only thing one needs to have. And you're going to see how that connects with the Great Mother in a deep way. But when you don't have it, or when you are not aware of it and you're not connecting to it, this reality will be perilous. It's not can be, it's will be. We're removing all the gloves today. Like, if you don't connect in with what I'm saying, especially in relation to the great mother, it can continuously get perilous because you will have no shield. Our mother is our shield, just like a child be in the stomach and protected from what's going on outside, at least to the best degree of what the mother can do. The mother is the shield. So if you don't have no shield and then you're running into all this fire, that's not how we do this. That's not what we learn. So we keep up fat, thick water shields when the fire is heating up, and then we make moves with the steam. So I wanted to touch and connect with you here today to, again, give thanks for your presence, to give thanks for your awareness, to give thanks for your support. It's been a mighty journey. And as you can see, we've done this journey like really going through the eye. They said the camel hair or camel passing through the eye of a needle. Like we've been in this house. We've been on this journey. We've been rowing this boat together. And we can't say that everybody is on. Like it hasn't dawned on them yet. It's not so clear that what we're saying is in fact true. But remember, you can almost go to at least the 8th or 9th recording out of the other 900 that are here on YouTube or however many it is. And you'll see that we're really talking about the same thing. The only thing is that we're refining it more. We're even making it simpler. We're putting in some graphics. We're making it fun because, 17 years in the trenches, you got to ask yourself, what are you doing to keep yourself entertained? So ask me, hey, Seven, what are you doing to keep yourself entertained? And I'll tell you everything. So I want to connect with you today with understanding everything is unity. Like this stuff is not hard. Like you can't say you have everything if you're not unified. So anything that you feel separate from, this is what I would be doing as the dean, being responsible for your tutelage, because I would still be like, yo, when are you going to actually catch on to exactly what I'm saying? Because I'm always wrestling with this flesh to stay balanced, right? But in my heart, my soul, my true existence is unified. It's not something that you have to do. It's already done. So in many ways, we are forcing the disconnection by insisting in the reality. Some of the tricks that have been played on us are actually true as far as what they are designed to do. So I'll say today that we're going to unravel all of that. And then also, more importantly, that's going to remove the mist between us and allow us to see each other clearly. Wholeness. Okay, the train is running. So, first of all, do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, or had nothing but the truth? Because that's how they be coming in on the oath. And I'm not really seeing truth. So this is one of those for real. I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to the best of my awareness. And I trust that truth, because in the end, what remains will be the truth, that truth will continuously set people free, actually allow them to understand how to get away from Lord Governor, how to get out of the body, out of this whole mental construct for just a moment at least. Some just going in a circle, it drives them psycho or cycles, and just allow them to get a fresh breath of air. And so I also want to mention again that this is a 3-part series. It is titled The Wisdom of the Serpent. My goal is to let people look deeper when they think about judging each other, especially racially. And this will come to assist us all in this great journey that we're all on. I also wanted to mention they love to play around with the idea that the world is a simulation or it's a matrix. But I would still say if that is the case, that means it's some kind of test, some type of drill, maybe from our ancestors. But I could tell you exactly what it would be about. And it would be for you to learn how to take the two most conflictive and opposing forces and merge them together to see what happens next. And I can tell you, many have already experienced what has happened next. It's just our turn. So when you have everything blending in to that center column, When you have all of those chakras collapsing into that single point, and then all of it opens up, all of your abilities, and then right then you realize that you're now in the realm of the mother. That will then be something that happens for you, and you'll never be able to change back from that into the falsehood of what's going on in this reality. So you'll see it so clear, and in that way, you can be a guide. You could be a guide to others of the direction to go. And I will say, for those who haven't experienced that or made it to that point yet, do you? But remember, how do you lead without really knowing where you're going or without a light? Okay, so remember what I said. So this phenomena, again, of bad judgment has things happening like, if you look into the comment section of when we experienced the LA fires, and I say we because everybody's got family in Cali. In the comment section, you saw this parade of God is punishing LA, punishing Hollywood. And then it showed the Golden Globes, right? If God is judging people based on what we're doing at the Golden Globes, you need to let God know that we're not all there. There's a few stars that seem to have elected themselves into higher, lofty positions and have placed everybody below them. That there are great people in Los Angeles, people who will give you the shirt off their back. There were churches burned along with synagogues. There were animals, pets, insects, all torched. So if this is God's wrath, I am here to for sure tell you, have nothing to do with that God. That would be naught but torment. And I'm going to demystify again all this today, and I'm going to completely apply pressure to this wound that's happening here on earth. So that way we can actually begin to heal, so that we can bandage this wound up and we can begin to heal as fast as possible, so we can prepare ourselves for what comes next. Because in something that's moving, there's always something going on. The only thing that you can guarantee here is that there's going to be change. So you need to prepare for change and be adaptive to change. The beings that have been here the longest, it is because they know how to adapt. Not cower, not get confused, not turn back, none of that. Okay, so let's keep going. So still though, you need to highlight, as a global psychologist, if you may, or at least a national psychologist, the mindset of a person who would begin to believe that it is the right of some unknown power or thing to hurt something that we would cherish and that we would care for, and then that we would be okay with that, if the whole narrative is true. You see what I mean? But the psychological damage within many of the religious structures are showing, the vulnerabilities that they have are showing through the people. And because we're now like in mass for real, you have so many people here on the planet, and then the controllers are so few and still themselves on legacy systems. You're starting to see the legacy systems go off the rails because they weren't designed completely. They were removing the key component, the component that keeps all of the fire from the patriarchal, pyramidal, fire inside, fire in the middle type energy. It keeps it cool so it doesn't burn up everything. Because as I explained before, even the deserts that you're seeing happen when they begin to abolish the true divine feminine. When they started covering it up, when they started suppressing it, when they started stealing it, when they started selling it, all of that created it being really depressed. And when it's depressed, it doesn't give forth its nourishment. Like they got the story of supposedly Tammuz, who leaves the world and then the world's vegetation starts to dry up. Homie, if that was the truth, it's Tammuz would then be a female of some sort, because if the feminine energy leaves, all of this is going to dry up. Animals are not going to mate anymore. None of that's going to happen because that's where it logically comes from. But these kind of things, these are the birds and the bees, or I say the bards and the bees. These are the things that, as the title says, this is the truth that most can't handle. But it's important still now for that truth to be spoken. And then we trust that the filters, because there's so many filters, from what's happening here on YouTube with the shadow banning to people's mindsets, especially with their dogmatic or racial persuasions. All of that is just filters the person from then, that there's only a few that are really truly listening to the message. But it is those few that will then take it, break it down into more sizable morsels, and then begin to feed the universe. Like, because the word universe means united in conflict. Universe. Okay? So it's like, this is a continuous thing. This is a world without end. So these morsels that I'm speaking today, they're to feed throughout the generations as they're continuously transmitted from one person to the other, which is an internet that does not have time and place. It's an internet that doesn't have time or place as something that can act against it. It doesn't need a power supply. You see what I mean? Us carrying the message from one life to another life, to my sister, to my brother, to his sister, to their uncle and cousins. That's power still moving through. That's the first, or one of the first powers. We were given many powers. So I advise one, tap into the truth, because that's where your power is. And the more you live in falsehood, that's fracturing your field. The falsehood is literally in your field and it's warping your field. And this is causing you not to be in alignment. And I'm only speaking to those who are experiencing troubles in this time. But I will tell you, tribe is good. We're well. We're strong. It's called sovereignty mentorship for a reason. The key word is sovereignty, meaning less dependency on everything else. So for sure, there could be some training wheels here for a moment, but our intention is wholeness and balanced vibrations, understanding inside of you, esoteric, why we decode the exoteric for the untrained or those who are not in the know. So again, I want to clarify also that words like spiritual don't mean the person is good. There are spiritual evil people. Okay? Like, it's sometimes we got to go back to the basics, because somebody says, well, he's very spiritual. What spirit? That's called discernment. He's the Lord. He loves the Lord. What Lord? There's Lord Ganesha. There's Lord Jesus. There's lots of lords. So certain words don't denote all the time what our mind immediately thinks they mean. And that's actually where hypnosis comes in, because hypnosis exploits words that are like switches that automatically lay down in your mind. I want to introduce you to this person. He's spiritual. Okay. And then right away, you're like, oh, spiritual. That means he's good. Here's another one. Oftentimes, even things like Kundalini, which is the Holy Ghost, gets confused by being only able to be received by good people. This is, again, it's like teaching a child. There are wizards, shamans, sorcerers that can predict the future even, and do stuff that will make you think, hey, this power only comes from God. And I will have to identify that for you for real today, of who exactly God is from a factual level. But going from there, you would have no discernment. You wouldn't understand that the entire firmament, along with the deep, is filled with what we would perceive as spirits. Some perceive them as serpents. Some perceive them as dragons, and that is the end of their visual references, because the geometry within our eyes even are a certain level of limitation where we can't perceive completely what something is. We have to associate it with something in order to get a definition of it, versus when you see the unknown, something that you've never seen before, what is it that you would call it? I saw a snake. You see what I mean? So in the realities, not having this multi-dimensional, multidisciplinary approach, when you're living in a multi-dimension, waiting on, some people be like, yo, they're talking about this in the movie. Yeah, but they're talking about a lot of other stuff. We're talking about the whole thing directly. Why do you need a movie to confirm to you about what we're talking about directly and happening here in the reality? Especially since they're on the time lag. That's even development time in there to get that concept out. Not to mention the goal. Here, it's all laid bare before you. So just remember, in this time, when you start feeling like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Where's God? Any of those kind of, I'm afraid, you need to dial in. It's the sign like, yo, I can't stay outside any longer. I need to get with my brothers and sisters, so that way I can be edified for real. That way, through these times and these processes, you actually contain more and more growth. The actual things that happen in the reality push you more and more into your truth, not into falsehood. Okay? So also, again, so I've seen and know about shamans who use Kundalini in a very negative way. They even dominate the little tribes of people that they have around them. They manipulate them. They do things that I wouldn't even be like, yo, that's cool to do. I don't care who you are. You shouldn't do other people like that. You shouldn't treat them like that. That's just, staying on the level, staying balanced. But they also have Kundalini. They also drink ayahuasca. Okay. So I want to demystify that just because a person looks all spiritual, because they say that they're spiritual, or you see them do something, that should not be the last thing that you look for to then take down your guard and then all of a sudden listen to everything that they're saying. Let them put their hands on you, believe in the same things that they believe in. Do your own searching of the soul. Also, we gave a blueprint. It turns out that anything that's true, you'll find everywhere. You'll go and find other examples of it in how trees grow. You'll find it in the ocean somewhere. Anything that has to function and run, including a car, you will find these truths that if somebody's speaking them inside of anything that is supposed to work. And this is why I'm saying, hey, if you're supposed to, we call it fun, because work is even a word that we continuously have to demystify. Look, work, word, world, worship. That word means war, right? So we're in war right now because of the vibration of the words. People get a wardrobe when they go to work every day so that these corporations, which are eidolons, can battle each other inside of the market or the arena. You see what I mean? And then we have large ones that have skeletons or frameworks that touch into the sky, while the people's souls and their energy inhabit their insides. And then we have all their power and energy focused onto a logo or a logos. And people bid for that. And its energy goes up and down as these juggernauts move through the reality. See what I mean? So I give you a totally different perspective of something that is absolutely true. But it's like, I'm not necessarily seeing it that way or communicating it that way. And I'm telling you that this language in which I'm communicating it in, the multidimensional language that allows you to go back and forth really easy between realities, if you can't see it here, because they can hide here, okay? They can hide even behind this skin. And then up there, you see what I mean? Like, if you can't perceive what's here, you got to go up there and get a bird's eye view and then look down on it. But some are too deep. They're in the ground. You see what I mean? They're buried. So then you have to go and put on the rights and go all the way down in order to see it from there. Because seeing is believing, right? And I put up a chart the other day. It shows the visual spectrum, and it says that, they shows that little sliver that we're on. And I say, hey, if I see it when I believe it is the term for everybody, we're going to be here for a long time, because there's a lot of stuff that you can't see, but you can feel it. And us moving around in the dark, sometimes just feeling our way through, we're able to recognize, like a blind man, exactly where we're at in the house. So everything is about the spirit of the person. Okay? So all of this exoteric, looking at a person from the outside, all of us, it's over. You try the spirit. And if the spirit in a person is balanced, is loving, cares, then you've found a great spirit. You've found a great friend. But if that spirit is conniving, it is scheming, all of that kind of stuff, that's what you're practicing discernment on. And this is why, even when you still have some of these people around you and they do that kind of stuff, isn't it always them that end up doing something that jeopardizes you? You see what I mean? But again, I'm not saying drop off all your folks, but I'm saying practice discernment about everything is about spirit. It's not about color. And this is how we can get assailed if we're playing around with the color game, because it keeps happening, right? Every time they throw somebody of color, whatever color it's going to be today, then that particular race gets totally fooled. And now they've put their two-dimensional imprint, which is your signature, onto an oath or a contract done by a magi. For real Kohanim, real priests. And they put your signature on that, and then now wondering, hey, what's going on? Why is stuff happening? You see what I mean? So it's like practicing discernment and understanding the multidisciplinary perspective allows one to make the perfect decisions at the perfect time. So we go by the spirit. I will say right now, let me just kind of get on point with my notes here, that this term, wickedness in high places, refers to most rulers since the beginning being pretty jaded with totalitarianism and warfare, okay? Because it fills up thousands and thousands of years. And you may say, well, but the democracies. There were never any democracies. Even right now, what we're living in is not a democracy by the definition. For sure, by the etymological definition, everybody is living in demus. However, the idea that we all vote and, then this person comes in that we voted for, no. That's never happened in these last thousands and thousands of years. See, before, like if you're saying, so what happened before that? We didn't need to vote. We were in a tribe and we were all so close together because there was only a few of us. There's less to think about. Like even if you look at the doctrines and you read about the first yuga, like as far as the yugas of the living beings, they talk about how the world is so plentiful that any being that lived in the world, like if you want to say like a pygmy was living, the vision is the trees are just dropping fruits and stuff. There's so much to eat. The pygmy of us almost spend no time foraging and going through the bush and doing any of that. It's like our ancestors basically was fed and nourished from this abundantly because there was only a few of them. In retrospect to how many are here now. If you just give an ode to math or a ma'at, it means that at some point there was only a few of us here. And this brings up something that I want as the ground today, is to understand that the reason why we're here is not really anybody's fault. This is more like I Ching. At a certain point, we would create cities. I want you to remember that. At some point, we will create cities. We will create places where large groups of people are together. Why? It's obvious, because we consume the land in high populations. If we all stay around each other And we don't know exactly how to completely cultivate the land, or even when we do. Because see, right now, even right now, a lot of folks don't really want to have kids, right? Actually, for a while, especially with the capitalist mindset, it's like, having a bunch of kids, nah. But back in the day, man, kids was like popping out all the time. So what I'm saying is that these populations being numerous anyway would get so numerous where it's time for us to spread out. And then as we begin to spread out, many different things happen, right? Because the consciousness of who gets the good land, who gets the bad land, that's the main one. And then more importantly, as you're starting to get more and more people and they congeal, now we need to depend on what? Trade. We need to trade with other tribes to get things that we don't have. We need to spread out further because we can't all be on the same loop. You see what I mean? And it's like, as we spread out and as we start trading, it's obvious that there would then begin to be contention, and then there would begin to be like wealthy merchants, poor people. So the reason why I'm giving you this foundation is because you need to understand that what's going on today doesn't need extraterrestrial involvement to happen. It's going to logically happen just within the growth of the population. So what these builds are about is they're about giving you important origin points of certain things that they will always anchor you through any kind of concept, because you have that anchor point. When somebody starts talking about something, you can fit it like right into one of the anchors and then get the truth from it. To recount step by step all of history, all of the territories, all of the people's names. Now, Sybil will do it, especially after this next update. Like, we got one more wild, uncensored update that we're about to push, and it can do it. But for a human, you see what I mean? Also, when I say it can do it, this is like, we got to continue this conversation. This conversation could go on for months, because what would we be trying to do? Account for the entire herstory of humanity. And you're going to do that in 2 hours, 3 hours? Come on, man. So the reason why for me, I love to dive into these origin points, though, is because, no, I cannot give you every single detail, but I can give you some very strong anchor points that you can go and research yourself. And then this will assist you throughout anything that you come to learn or somebody else says, because it'll be the direct connection into that. And you'll know the truth and be like, man, I don't think that resonates. That doesn't resonate. For instance, if we're going to go with the Noah story, right, that it was the sons of Noah that eventually became the fathers of all races, wouldn't that make like all races then the same color? Since all Noah's sons were coming from Noah? And I mean, am I missing something? How can you account for the racial differences within people because there was 3 different men, and these 3 different men, what? Because the racial dominance anyway is going to ensure that, especially if that was a melanated man, all of those babies are going to be melanated. So this idea that the races of mankind and woman, we'll put that in there, came really from the actions of 3 men, this is ridiculous, especially if that's to account for the differences in their skin tone. I advise you, if you have a racial problem, that you go and pick this up. I don't know if you can see that. It's called Nature Knows No Color Line, okay? For Black people and white people, okay? And everybody in between, because it will totally demystify the final thoughts that you have that we didn't all spring from an original stock. Okay, so I'm saying that here now, but then I got to also take you through at least a few of these last 10,000 years to what happens when one, your geographical and your territorial elements change. Okay, now we have a term, and this term is, man, he's cold. He's a cold person. Or, man, they just like a hot blooded species. Okay. And what do those terms mean? I don't need to like tell you, you don't have to be a part of that culture to understand the difference between the two. It's almost like we already figured out that even the temperature of areas controls really your demeanor to a certain degree. Have you ever seen people on the beach on a sunny day versus in a snowstorm or a blizzard? Okay, so let's imagine that this is happening over tens, 20, 30, 100 years. Do you not think that a person is going to be affected in any kind of way? So maybe you don't. You have to be, yeah, we'll just leave it like that. Environment affects people. See, this is what the ancients were talking about the different forces and elementals that exist within places. Like the fire elemental is stronger where it's hot. The water elemental is stronger where it's wet. But these elements are alive. So humanity's been looking at these elements like they don't, these are, here's water in a cup. Well, this is why you can't make water rise out, because you don't completely realize how alive it is. So you can communicate with it, talk to it, resonate with it inside of you, become it, and then even move it around. So these elements and things are alive, but they come in different measures. And this is what the world is like. The world in itself, there are places that are abundant, there are places that are desolate. And it is all controlled by the elements and the energies that live in those spaces. And those elements and energies that live in those spaces, they then live forward within the flora and fauna that is in those spaces. That is the plants, the trees, and the insects. And this is why if you remove those plants, trees, insects from their environment, and then somehow they don't get back that same conditioning or similar, then they will die. Okay? And then when somebody is growing up in that area, they are eating from this foliage. They're eating from the prana. Okay? And then based on what they're eating, it affects their DNA, including the animals, including the everything that is there. And then they, just like an old couple living together, they start to look like each other even. You see what I mean? There's nothing that's keeping you from seeing this level of common sense. And we'll go even further. Have you not, me as a people watcher, I saw this early on. Have you not seen or been to another country, right? Let's say now we got the internet. So sometimes you can see people from a different country, right? But go to another country and interact. You will find a cat that's just like one of your partners, but he's from another race. He looked like him. The eye set even be like him. The slang and the swag even be like him, but he'd be another color. And you're like, man, even the Chinese. You see what I mean? If you have not recognized this, you have to be blind. This racial color, it comes from flora and fauna, environment, and then there is one more rather inconvenient truth that many can't handle. And this was only recorded in Enoch, where it explained that some of the fallen, this is what they, love to call their relatives, went into certain beasts. Okay, we're going to just leave it there. Okay, I have a book. It's funny, I have this same book. I have two of these books because I ordered the book and then somehow another one ended up arriving. I guess because it was in the cart. I did go to look for the book before the show, and that's facts because all the books that I'm going to be, talking about today are all here on the desk. So it was an effort to find this book. And remember, there's two of them running around the house, and I could not find either one of them, right? But it'll come up because there's two, but it was still funny. It was like, yo, nah, just, pour it on like just lightly, Seven. Don't, because this book shows how also the countenance and the eye sets and things are clearly showing that at some stages, either humans came from the animals or somehow some hybrid human animals came up. And how that happened, that's an inconvenient truth for all nations. But when you start studying deeper and deeper and deeper, you start figuring out, I see that there's another component that they're not talking about what really makes certain races after a while different. But it still does have to do with the flora and fauna of their places in which they were raised and grew up from their ancestry. However, the road to redemption, or what we call the path or the journey, is the same, and all is but experience. This means that if somehow you get through all of this mixing and all of these different things that happen in the matrix, and you actually come through and you're now balanced and in alignment, that meant that the great work was complete. And I always have a firm belief that just like the in the Hindu text, it tells you that if it reaches samsara, that's its purpose, meaning that when a person doesn't want to learn the truth, nature will teach them and it will grind them down to nothing, even when they have absolutely nothing, where there's no other direction but up, in order to get that truth into them. And then they will be welcomed into the family of unity, because you'll know, hey, that division stuff, that ain't it. I remember hitting the bottom in division. That's what division can do. It could take away, it could take away so much. In unity, nothing can be taken away. Where would you get it? You can't give anything to it. Where would you get it? You can't take anything from it. Where would you put it? See, these are maxims. And when you want to be in with the perpetual, you have to embody that completely. So even if, let's say, I'm not embodying it completely, I'm doing my best because I know it's the truth. I'm not like trying to like hide it and smudge it. I'm going to be the one dying and living again, and dying and living again. I'm the one that has to deal with this experience every single day. So I'd rather spend my time talking to you about great things, having that responsibility to have to go and do the research, right? Something gets so busy these days, but I still got try-bys every 2 weeks. So it's like, I'm going to come in correct. We expect it. It's 100 all the time, at least, if not coming in at 1,000. So that means at some point, I'm going to drive in, from the world in the matrix, and I'm going to go in on the last point that I left off with this journey. And it never fails. It's never been a time where it's been like, I think we know it all. I think we figured it all out. It's never been a time. And you know what? There never will be. This is how we're continuously fueling our joy and our creativity, by learning more about this space. But it's deep and it requires maturity. So let's go forward. Let's talk more about how the so-called, we'll say the greats, okay? And again, this is just making notations in the record. The greats, these are the scholars of our time, never discussed race as being a demarcation between who was greater and who was inferior. This includes Aristotle, who studied anatomy in the body. Never did he say, hey, because one was of this, it made him superior. Either way. Hippocrates or Hippocrates didn't either. Herodotus didn't either. Xenophanes didn't either. And Strabo didn't either. So this means that in any academic institution where men have now begun to separate superiority and inferiority, no matter what color they are, amongst basically no matter what color that your persuasion or your side is on, those who are known far more in the world for their academic achievements, they didn't make any issue of it. And that's important to know. It's also important to know as we go through this process that notice how when I say BC, right? Like, let's say I say 400 BC. Doesn't that make you feel like we're talking about like the dinosaurs? Like the dinosaur era? Like when I say, hey, you know, that happened in BC. It seems like so long ago. But even in being in 2025, we're only 2,024 years, which is roughly what, 25 generations away from year zero. Okay, that's not a long time. But not only is it not a long time, why would we reset time to zero? Does that make any sense? I'm gonna let you bake on that for a minute. I'm gonna check, you know, all the channels, make sure everything is still pumping. But what do we do? What is going on? Like all of a sudden things are going, time is being kept, and then somebody said, we're gonna start all over. Doesn't that automatically seem like a hijack to you? Wouldn't that just kind of seem like that something's wrong with that? Who can just turn time to zero and then decide to start it again? Anybody who would be like thinking that that's cool and that's okay and that wouldn't have any effects? Again, that would be probably a result of lack of education, lack of any kind of way of speaking, power, knowledge, wisdom, ancestry, anything for somebody to just start your world back at zero again and then tell you, hey, this is the time. And this is what I'm saying. You got to also look at these events that occur when these hijacks happen, because supposedly AD is after death and the other one is before Christ. Okay, so you literally enter into all of the ancient traditions and spiritual concepts of time throughout the existence of Earth to start it from zero for somebody else. And that's okay. These are the kind of things that I'm saying that after a while, you start realizing that then people think also that there is no world really before Jesus. Or even before Adam, we'll put it that way. They think that there's no world before Adam. There's no existences, there's no entities, there's no nothing before Adam. This is what goes on psychologically when you begin to accept these kind of things that, you know, you could just brush off. It's like, well, you know, now we're 2025. What is year zero? Further, you gotta then ask yourself, and this is why I gave you the reference of the book, Nature Knows No Color Line, like where did this racial thing come from? Right? Because in this reality, we've adapted it a lot. And in many ways, we always insist that it's from another race and they invented it. And that part of that is true. But what it truly is that we carry it with us every day inside of the religion. The religion itself, as I'm going to show you, was 100% the reason why people started making racial distinguishments. Okay? The first evidence that's brought forward was actually from 3000 BC, where at this time the Aryans invade the Dacians. Now the Aryans are literally coming from some area, right? So they're coming from the land of Cush, still after thousands of years. And they invade this area where the Dacians are still present. And then they begin to implement a caste system. That's the first record. This is the record of Indra, which I've always said is like, okay, when you look at some of the ancient texts, Indra is like, Indra disrespected Brihaspati. Indra almost in itself embodies this disrespectful culture that we have going on today. And, many didn't, pay any like mind to that. Like there's a lot of text there. But it turns out that that was the cult of Indra. And then they bought in this distinguishments through the caste system. Okay. Now, because this is a priestcraft, more importantly, the latter Babylonian priestcraft. This is the fish hats. After they've stolen the knowledge from, what you could clearly see is the Mamiwata priestess, who is the real Dagon, the real Oannes. But then they now have a new one. And then they have this Oannes, and this Oannes is a male god. And then this Oannes, through this Oannes cult, or we'll say this Babylonian cult, becomes the ones who write the text. This is not only the Aryan text written in Sanskrit, saying that Sanskrit is the oldest language when everyone knows Tamil is so old, but they want to move Tamil out of the way because if you know Tamil, then you will already know Sumerian. Check this book out, Dr. Lenny Srinivasan, Desi, and also his other book called Crete. If you want, these guys are not playing around. Like you can't write thousands of pages on bullshit. Breaking down the linguistic structure to show you that the Sumerians are a part of these people, are interbred in a part of the same nation once. They call them the Kola Kings. Why is this important? Because in the end, these still do become the rabbinical priestcraft. And at this point, just like you see it inserted into the Aryan caste system, you also see it inserted into many of the texts where the rabbis misconstrue Genesis 9, 20, and 27 by insisting that the curse on Ham and Canaan is dark skin. Okay? Which even a simple Google right now will refute and say, no, this was all a misunderstanding. This came from, and they running from it now. But I even have a Jewish Bible in here. It's in there still. Perk de Rabbi Eleazar, chapter 24. Ham saw his father's nakedness, therefore he was smitten in his skin with blackness. Midrash, Tamhuma, Parashat, Noach. Ham's descendants to Africa, or saying they became dark. The Sefer HaYasar, sometimes called the Book of Jasher. It explicitly states that Ham's descendants settled in Africa and had dark skin as a result of the curse. Okay? That is the first entry, and that is the justification in which slave masters used to enslave even black people, that they were enforcing the curse. Okay? Go look it all up. But now it's backpedaling because they're like, no, that was a misinterpretation. No, that's not really what was supposed to be said. It's not actually present in the New Bible, which it is not. It has been removed. It was never present in the Masoretic text, which was the original text everything was translated from. It was in the book of Jasher. It was in this book, and it was also spread because this wasn't just exclusive, because we're talking about the brotherhood. We're talking about a patriarchy. We're talking about the fathers of all the religions. And if it has an Abraham on it, then it has the stamp. Because the same thing was brought forth in what they called the curse of Muhammad. I can pull the text. Because see, now they want to go scholarly. And that will bury them. Because now we're in the future, so we can all read. We all have books now. Here, what it's stating is, let's read it. The Arabs say that Muhammad whilst on the road from Medina to Mecca, one day happened to see a widow woman sitting before her house and asked her how she and her 3 sons were. Upon which the troubled woman, for she had concealed one of her sons on seeing Muhammad's approach, lest he, as a customary, when there are 3 males of a family, they should seize one and make him do porterage, meaning like to make him a servant. Peep out this, because this is a reoccurring theme. So they're saying literally Muhammad's moving through the land, and it was always that if they rolled up on a family and you had 3 boys, they would take one. Okay? They said, very well, but I've only 2 sons, the mother. Muhammad, hearing this, said to the woman reprovingly, woman, thou hast liest. Thou hast 3 sons, and for trying to conceal this matter from me, henceforth remember that this is my decree, that the 2 boys which thou hast not concealed shall multiply and prosper, and they shall have fair faces. They'll become wealthy and reign lords over the earth. But the progeny of your 3rd son shall, in consequence of your having concealed him, produce Sedis, as black as darkness, who will be sold in the market like cattle and remain in the perpetual servitude to the descendants of the other 2. Okay? So what I'm just showing you is that this was never a part of original Islam. This was never a part of original Gnosticism, which wasn't called Christianity. These were insertions by the rabbis, folklores and tales that they even spread and put within their books, their midrashes, and even in some of the hadith. And this drove the people against each other. It started getting them to a point where they were only looking at the racial differences between each other, but it wasn't really a racial difference. It was a religious difference. And let me show you. And again, this is understanding that each religion is a king. This is a part of part 2. Each religion is a king, and this is the king's custom. And when you are subdued, you follow the customs of that king. And part of those customs is to hate the other kingdom, even if it's your own brothers and sisters. Does that sound familiar in Korea? Does that sound familiar in Vietnam? Does that sound familiar in the United States? North, South America? Do you think that the black people in North America are that different than the Hispanics in Central America and on down all the way through? You see what I mean? So again, you're seeing lighter skin tones. You're seeing darker skin tones. The difference is you may see like some light blonde hair, but then you're showed that, hey, if you're going to stay in a certain environment in snow and little light, your hair is going to turn the same color and it's going to get thin. So what I'm saying is you got to be able to put all of this together, but then you got to have motive, right? It's like, so why would they do this to us? Okay, let me show you. First of all, you see here, this is what I want to show you first, because pictures speak 1,000 words. How many shades of brown do you see here? First of all, who is really white? Who is this color? Nobody. I think I've only seen one person like this. I thought I saw him. It was nighttime. But what I'm saying is nobody is completely black or completely white. Okay? So these terms are arbitrary to begin anyway. Okay? But this sets up the play also for many people to actually begin to forcefully lighten their skin through not only interbreeding, mainly interbreeding, like breeding up, like we call it breeding up the gentry. This is also part of lesson 2, where I have to show how King James, who furnished you your Bible, bred up the gentry to have lighter and lighter and lighter skin. Okay? And I'm going to show you why here in a moment. Because after a while, there became this bitter, and I'll take a moment because there's no reason to speed through this. There became this bitter rivalry against the dark Africans versus, let's say, the mulattoes. And if you don't think this exists, you don't need to go any further than Brazil. There's a lot of places that you go into, and this thing still exists where people who you know are from Negroid descendancy, especially up in Spain, Portugal, all of this. Their origins, not colonization, their origins. Let's take a step back here. When we talk about observing our ancestors, we're talking about beings that lived a countless amount of time and began a countless amount of time ago and still exists up until this very moment and will continue to exist in the future. So there's a different kind of thing we're talking about when we talk about ancestors, okay? We go into the spiritual world when we're talking about our ancestors. We don't necessarily even put a face on them when we're talking about our ancestors from how I feel in my soul. But this latest regime, when they talk about their ancestors, they be talking about like some folks that was living in castles only 500-600 years ago, maybe 1,000 years ago, tops. That's not ancestors. Those are descendants. So the world needs to wake up to the reason why the culture is so debased because it doesn't celebrate its ancestors is because we are the ancestors. Meaning that if you come into this whole racial thing and you're like, yeah, these black people, these darker skinned black people, whatever they ain't, if you're ever into that and you're walking on this earth, this would account for why you would probably find your lineage not celebrating its ancestors because it can't tell you the truth. We are the ancestors. And I'm not saying me personally, through DNA for sure, absolutely. But I'm saying thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, where all of us came from, no matter what color skin you have, was from this source that these people were way more in tune with. All the time, it was about the ancestors to them. They refreshed the graves. When's the last time you've been to somebody that you know has died's grave? Just a footnote. These people love their ancestors so much, they refresh the grave every year. It's like, yo, we never gonna forget you. They put the picture up because they know their ancestors move in the other plane. They move either in the deep or they move in the sky. Either they become snakes or they become doves. That was the symbolic. And in reality, they actually become both because we have bodies on all planes. So if you were staying in balance and staying in tune, so that way you don't get knocked out of the paint on the lower vibratory, and you can stay in tune on the higher vibratory, it meant that you understood who your ancestors were in all of those states. They like to look at the bird state all the time, right? Like they got the big bird on the flag, and then they kick the snake to the curb. And there's a reason for this. You've seen the colors, okay? But is there a difference here in color? What's happening? Are they shy about painting him brown? But what is he doing? So my friends, if this was a color thing only, it would be so easy. If this was only about color, it would be so easy for us to avoid the perils here. But it's not. Because people from the same color smite each other when they start playing around with these religions and kings. Okay? Now, again, in all respect of the divine masculine, in balance, There is power here. It is no different than, as I said earlier, wicked people have Kundalini. There are wicked spiritual people in high places. Even the word MAGA is a magus. I can show you it right from the etymology in the great Ancient and Modern Britons, Volume 2. The term MAGA, or which is a cognate of Marcus, meant actually dark sorcerer. And I'm going to demystify for you why that is the case, but it also is important for you to see the bottom of this. Who's down there? Okay. Also, you need to understand that just like snakes, how many species of snakes we got? They're still finding new species of snakes. This is also like what it is with dealing with a lot of stuff on Earth, like even the beetles. There's a lot of different beetles. So too with the humanoids. There's a lot of different types of humanoids. That's why they say, hey, it's mankind. Because in a while, it's like, everything is about your spirit. So when you're going through experiences, you may come out of the cave. You may came out of Plato's cave and worked your way all the way through. You see what I mean? More power to you. But we also, again, need to understand that there is more going on than you think. And that we are continuing on this journey, but there are some things that have happened, and we need to be able to put in some anchor points so that way we realize why a large chunk of the world has lost their damn minds. And it will only be these pillars, those who truly know the truth, that actually stabilize the reality. But we're going to be all right. The thing is, it's like if you're worried about losing just life, which has a perceived end, you already got to check yourself. That's where all your fear is coming from. Like, who cares about 70, 75 years to infinity? If you have a problem, it's because you haven't tapped in. You don't trust. You don't trust that your ancestors, all there is, the great mother, has got you. So let me give you some more common sense. If this world is so filled with the man energy, man's well, what do you think that the spiritual plane is full of? Seeing in which how the designers and the creators create. If the more this one becomes masculine, the more it proves that the other one is feminine. So this is why when you leave here, you feel like you went home. You feel like mama's got you now, that she's taking care of you now, because that's where you're going. You're going to the womb. The womb exists in the sky, as you call it, and it exists in the deep. It surrounds everything. Okay? We are the baby in the womb now. So, the dialing in part of what needs to happen here is that you need to get more connected to your great mothers, to your ancestral. And as I said, you don't got to go and pick up these books. I'm going to show you, because there's a lot of secret societies in Africa, but I'm going to show you people that, yes, I'm going to get closer to my ancestors. And they get out of the frying pan into the fire. They go from the frying pan into the fire, because then they believe, oh yeah, I'm going back, and they hit Africa, and they imagine what's going on in Africa right now is what's always been going on. No, not all over the place. You will still see those sweet great mothers though, but not all over the place. You'll see that the men have set up what men have set up in this world. Not all men, but again, we need to remember that once we got into the cities, then it became about the man. But before then, though, it was about the matriarch. So you may ask yourself the question, what happened to the matriarch? Let me show you. Also, I do want to mention, actually, there's a few more notes here. What was the racial thing truly about within the Bible? They wanted the land of Canaan. That exists to this very day, people. Canaan is Palestine. That's what it was about. It was about the land of Canaan. Even, we won't say his name now, but he was like, oh, yes, the beaches are nice. The weather is nice. And he even had like a little look on the face like, damn, homie, you coveting another man's land, ain't you? But it's a reality. They wanted the land of Canaan, and this is what they made like a promise. Like all those oaths and pacts, and it's all a promise to try to get that land. But we'll keep going. To the Greeks, there were only two races, Greeks and barbarians. Okay, now, even when I read that, I was like, damn, homie, this is what I'm talking about. So the Greeks didn't care where you were from. If you didn't have the Greek citizenship in this kind of thing, you were a barbarian. I don't care how learned you were. So the idea again that the color is the real denominator, no, many have rose up, and it's generally the religious culture, mainly the God, because the God is the king. Let's demystify who God is, okay? After I show you this, there should be no more doubt. Now, we had a marker, and it was that God, which derives from the Germanic term, seemed to have an identity connected to Gud or Guden, a Germanic or Gothic king, okay? It goes deeper. It goes so much more deeper. Even I was like, that could seem like, even though it's deep, that could seem exoteric to what I found. This is what I found. I found your God. I have found your God. And I'm talking about the religious people that obey the Abrahamic tradition. The first thing is that just like I showed you, there seems to be this thing with God sacrificing his son. Okay, this should have been the first red flag, but again, common sense ain't common. Sacrifice your son. Now you see this same thing with, hey, if I see three boys, I'm taking one of those boys. This is a concept that is derived from when fathers, divine masculine men, thought about sending their sons to die. They'd rather defect. It took a long time for fathers to be molded into giving their sons to the king, like a man may send his son off to the military today. You would think that they would naturally, no, they want to defend their nation. No. See, this is not how it worked. You got to do all of the crawling through I Ching. You got to see, okay, we hit big cities, or cities were getting bigger. Marauders start pillaging certain cities and stealing things. Women were the first currency. Hello. Before cattle, women were the currency when we started the money thing. You see what I mean? A heifer. They show in the etymology so many words that show, especially in the ancient and modern Britain, Old English, to show you that a heifer, woman, and all this chattel was synonymous with selling a woman as a form of currency, a form of commerce. And so there are two things that the Abrahamic tradition subliminally plants within its followers. And that is one, that you should give your child up for the king. And they do that first by telling Abraham flat out, you need to go sacrifice. The trip is, according to the context, do you know the one that tried to stop Abraham from sacrificing his son? The devil. Man, what kind of mind bender is this? Go look it up. The one who stops Abraham in the Arabic tradition, or so-called Arab tradition, okay? Because Islam is about the body. This is something else, clearly. Do you know Who stops him? The devil stops him. So what am I to believe? Am I to believe that if God asks me to do something and something tells me not to, as far as like killing my own son, that it's the devil telling me not to kill my own son so I could disobey God? Whoa, whoa. That's a double-binded Gordian knot. So let's go forward though. Like, of course, he's like, no, I'm just kidding. I just wanted to see if you were going to do it. And then one testicle later or one testament later, he's actually killing. He's like, look, we're going to do this different. I'll kill him. What sense does it make to ever believe that one person is the only child of the Supreme? Whoa, whoa. What the hell? How? That makes no sense. Yet, my people, billions of people believe this. This is what you need to look at. We're just now smart enough to realize we've been believing in this idiocracy that is really designed to, one, get you to give up your son to the king because he needs soldiers and he's a soul dyer. Type it out. He's a soul dyer. He's a dying son. Soldier, soul dyer, dying son, to go work for the king because the king is the God and the God is Gad, the seventh son of Jacob, grafted onto the tree at I don't know what stage, becomes God himself. When people say God, it's actually, this is pronounced G-A-W-D, by the way, God. That's how it's pronounced. It's not pronounced like like we say it. God. Let me show you some more because, we're not doing research. We have all these people around us who keep saying they know what's going on. Now we're in space. Now we're with the Anunnakis, the UFOs. You haven't even figured out Earth. Sit down. That's all distraction. Those are hijacks. Those are people that don't know. They never been on no journeys. They never opened up the third eye. They don't care anything about you. They never built anything. They're talking heads. Oh, I'm just bringing awareness. Awareness, build something so that we can inhabit it. Help us. And like I said, then all the time, the attention, the resources, everything goes towards that. Then what do you think that leaves for us? What do you think that leaves for people who are really doing something? Nada. So we still carry the load. Glorious. This is with whom they're placing their faith. And this is why, like, they try to cover it up. Now, do we think this is Nimrod? Go Google Nimrod and check anything from Nimrod. And then ask yourself, is this Nimrod? Not to mention, I call this code name Nimrod. And this means that everything that can't be disclosed about the Sumerians just gets thrown under, oh, Nimrod. It was the Nimrods. Those Nimrods. This is not Nimrod, but at least they're explaining that Nimrod was a giant. Nimrod was amongst the fallen. Nimrod, blah, blah, blah. And then they, proceed to throw Nimrod ass under the bus. Because that's what this consistently does, is that it's all a level of priestcraft where they are so in tune with each other, brainwash, that they have poisoned the people. Here's a book. If you don't think I know what I'm talking about, see how big this book is? Okay? I know seems like the lights is up high or something like that, but you see, this is meaty. These is big pages, right? And they writing, okay? This book is called West African Secret Societies. Do you know how many secret societies are in West Africa? See, in the U.S., we'd be like, yo, we got the Illuminati. And if you're in the know, we got Ordinati, we got Diaboli, we got an Intrepidi. Give me some pizza. But the secret societies inside of West Africa or in Africa in general are numerous. And it's sad. It's sad to see how it's like we literally reach a state where we don't even really protect each other anymore. Like I said, it's not a black or white thing. It's about the spirit. But I'm telling you, the spirit of the people is good. I see these people. I'm not. Actually, I'm a really good judgment of character. Really good judge of character. That's just from people watching for so many years. Like, even if a person moves a certain way, I can already tell what I'm dealing with. I see huge populations of good, sweet people that just want to live. I'm talking about everywhere. Ukraine, our developers are from Ukraine. These people are like, they're naturally soft-spoken, quiet people. That's just how they are. They ain't crunk, if you may. You see what I mean? They don't like being talked to. Like, if you talk to them, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a different kind of person. It's definitely not a person who can kill somebody, is what I'm saying. Like, yeah, they got warriors there, but I'm just saying, it's like, that's not really a part of their culture. Their spirit in itself is soft. These are not evil people. These are not the ones that are going to be like, yo, kill them all. Let me show you something. Let me take a break. Let me cool down. I got the chat here with me. If you can hear this, just wave your hand like that so we can make sure that everybody is hearing this. I'm going to cool down. I want you to look at this because I need you to hear it from someone with a good spirit. Let me go ahead and let me see, where am I at? All right, let me drop this in again. Oh, there it is. Okay. Someone with a good spirit.
Our government, the U.S., he was the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, are so arrogant that they're creating wars and that they're creating bigger and bigger risks. And I've watched closely and I have studied these issues, I'd say, pretty meticulously. I've read, spoken, and discussed with people, with heads of state. I don't trust the United States. That's the basic point. If we look at things quantitatively, the biggest gangster of the 19th century was Britain, by far. And they just loved their empire, and they commanded around 25% of the world's territory at the height of the British Empire. And there is a well-known, semi-humorous but quite serious book documenting the 23 countries that Britain never invaded, meaning that Britain invaded the whole world. Britain made provocations. Britain made wars everywhere. I feel the United States learned, sitting on Britain's knee, everything we know about empire we learned from Britain. Then the U.S. exercises its power in a unique way. Covert regime change. Covert regime change, basically CIA operations. These are covert regime change operations. A little weird. Of course, the regime change is obvious. Of course, the moment it happens, everyone says the United States. So what's covert about it? What's covert about it is the United States said, no, we didn't do it.
Yeah, no responsibility.
We didn't do it. And then everyone looks around to, well, we pretty sure you did it, but we can't say you did it. We can't prove you did it. Or even if you can prove you did it, we better not say you did it. So there's nothing really covert about it. Sometimes it's so absurd. It's so tragic. I'll give you an example. There was a president of Haiti that I liked. Aristide. He said to me in 2001, as I was in his office in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, Jeff, they're going to get me. I'm always a little naive. So I said, no, Mr. President, they're not going to get you, and I'm going to help you, and everything's going to be fine. And then in 2002, 2003, you watch the Bush administration. No IMF loans for Haiti. No World Bank loans for Haiti. Turn off the Inter-American Development Bank. This is the way you start tightening. Add sanctions, squeeze the finances. Then the economy's cratering, but he stays in power. He's got a strong base, political base. One day, literally, the US ambassador walks to his house and says, I need to save your life because otherwise your life is at risk. There's an insurrection underway. So come with me. And they guide him to an unmarked plane, no tail markings. And they put him in the plane, and 23 hours later, he's in the Central African Republic. Okay. So there's a coup in broad daylight, and I called the New York Times reporter, and I said, could you cover this? The U.S. just overthrew the Haitian government. The reporter on the beat said, Jeff, my editor's not interested in it. So this is a game, and it's a very, very serious game, and it's getting us closer and closer to annihilation, because Haiti is one thing, Ukraine is another thing. Okay, who's the new government gonna be? Yeah, maybe Klitsch. No, not Klitsch. He should stay out. Thinking Yatsenuk, he's the guy. They discuss who they're going to put in for the new government. And on February 22nd, a few weeks later, it's Yatsenuk. He becomes the new prime minister. The U.S. is part of yet another coup. And by the way, that's the start of the Ukraine war. That's literally the start of the Ukraine war. The war didn't start in February 2022. It started in 2014. So that's why I say, I don't trust the Americans. Right. We captured the Palestinian lands in 1967, and we're never going to give them back. Netanyahu spells out very clearly the following story. He says, we're going to keep the land. There will be resistance. Hamas, Hezbollah, other militant resistance. What will we do about it? You can't really fight the terrorists, he says. You have to fight the states that back the terrorists.
And Iran is the central one in his mind.
But interestingly for Netanyahu, he lays out one by one. Yes, of course, Iran is the central one in his mind. He laid it out, and he at various times listed the countries. And one list that showed up in the Pentagon just after 9/11 was 7 countries: Iran, Iraq, Lebanon, Syria, Somalia, Sudan, and Libya. And you know what the plan was? 7 wars in 5 years. And is this the U.S. using Israel? No. This is Israel using the U.S. as if our military is in their hands, which in effect it is. You take Wolfowitz and you take Feith and you take these neocons and you take Netanyahu. They game planned the whole thing out. And where is the Middle East today? War in Syria, war in Lebanon, war in Palestine, unrest in Iraq, the war in Yemen. Chaos in Sudan, chaos in Somalia, chaos in Libya. Great job, Bibi. You did a terrific job. So this is, to my mind, what this is all about. These people have ideas. You take our current story in the United States of China, the war like China. How many wars has China been in the last 40 years? Let me count them. That would be 0, not one war in 40 years. When was the most recent war that China was in? January 16 to February 16, 1979. 1 month in a conflict with Vietnam, which had to do actually with the Vietnam having overthrown a government in Cambodia. Okay, 1 month. We are not at dire risk from China. China is not mass murdering its population. But we are gearing up in the United States for war with China. Why? Well, once again, people actually wrote why. You have to know where to look. But if you look at the Council on Foreign Relations, an article by a former colleague of mine, Robert Blackwell and Ashley Tellis, in 2015. They say that China has become so powerful that it threatens American primacy. And China's rise is no longer in America's interest. And so you watch this mentality in the US go into effect. Suddenly, because China's economically successful, they're not just economically successful, they're the enemy.
Okay. So I got quite a few more things here, but remember, this is part one. So as I start cracking this code, part two, I'm going to also show how, let me just check sound. Somebody can wave if they can hear me speak. Part two, I'm going to show how one brotherhood from Samaria uses the six, and the other brotherhood, if you may, or when we say brotherhood, like we got to get stronger words, because even cult doesn't actually even do it. Like, yeah, I'm going to have to check my lexicon and find a deeper word, because they move under the six and they move under these two symbols, the pentagram and the hexagram. But it's for a reason, because it's also in their geometry. So when they build, respectively, they build within their own geometry and their own power framework and power network, which almost even sounds like a business meeting in itself. And I also wanted to, because I'm going to continue here in a moment. I just need to take a quick breather, because I really want to take a moment to just acknowledge those who have fallen in this process of the great learning. Jeff Sachs is no lightweight at all. Go look him up. It's not like you're just seeing some guy that's maybe a dean or a professor or nah. And if he's telling you he doesn't trust it, why should you? Now, I'm not saying don't trust the United States, because you trust yourself. I didn't tell you to trust anything but yourself. But also, we have our families, we have our homes, we have things in this country. And so what I need to explain to you, first of all, is that you are still in the most ideal space, especially if you happen to be melanated, that there is no country or not melanated that you can financially excel to bring about your quantum sovereignty rapidly than the United States' capitalistic structure. You can't imagine that you're going to go to Africa and get the same kind of education, loans, and treatments, et cetera, that you will ever receive in America. And that's also for those that are European. You can't think you're going to go to Poland right now. So, but it requires you to wake up. It requires you to say, okay, this is it. I'm going right into action. I'm going to keep stacking. I'm going to maybe explore a little bit more of these alternative currencies or something like that, because I feel like, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be trusting them either. Not that you ever had a reason besides Stockholm Syndrome. I also want to mention just how powerful the land is. It was even like what Sister Christy said on our last Tri-Vibe. She said, even after the fires, I still feel the spirit moving there. And as long as I feel it there, then I'm going to stay. That's it right there. That is it. Being so in tune with the energy and the force of all there is, when it's telling you leave, stay. And if you want to check in, that's just as simple as, can you really dial in or can't you? Because it's what's causing you to dial in. And that's what this next point that I want to mention after I take this little break is about, it's about what happened to the matriarch. And because you have to ask yourself some questions like, okay, what do men have as a benefit as far as over women. Okay, like let's say there's no corporate world and we're just out, we're in the field. Who is the most dominant there if we get into the who's more dominant thing? What do men have? You can maybe type something in your chat. Yes, in the plainest terms. It's even one word. Let me check out some of these chats over here. What's up, chat? They were saying on Twitch. It's like, yo, what's up, chat? How's chat doing out there? I see you, chat. See you, Josh. Starjetic. I love the word. All right, I don't see any comments coming through. Strength. Thank you. Thank you, Layla. Men have strength. And that has always been this thing, right? Because real talk, if it comes down to it, most men are stronger than women. So in the matriarch, how is it that the women keep the men in check if, I keep giving everybody that way out because everybody loves to imagine that two opposite forces can come together and only love each other when, never seeing that. But to really understand that if you had this man and you had this woman and they're all in the same area, what stops the men from dominating just through sheer strength? And that's what I want to talk about when we step back in this. So I'm going to take 3 minutes. I'm going to turn something on. Yeah, let's just do something calm. We just coming right back and coming right forward, as I say.
Why must we stop? I learned nothing from failing.
True learning requires action and stillness in equal parts. You have made the action. Now seek the stillness.
All right. So we're back up in this. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick sound check and make sure everything is on point. Appreciate it, Sean. We're going to keep riding out. Let me see. Okay, so we're an hour and a half in. I just I wanted to make sure that these series are in a time frame that is digestible. So we're going to ride out for about 30 more minutes, and that should get us through until the point of me at least giving some outlines of what we're going to go into next. Also, if you are in the chat, if you can push the like button, I heard it does something. Like, also click the notification bell and put it on all if you want to receive the notifications. I learned how to say that from watching YouTube. But yeah, I'm just want to take a moment and just let everybody know we're here. I make it look easy. Let's put it like that. I make it look easy. If you wanted to join Sovereignty Mentorship, this is the time for sure. Remember that there's a lot of step-by-step on the activation. So if I'm just coming in here today and you're like, well, what do I do? We already have solutions. I'm not even going to leave you on the phone today without giving you any. I've already given you some. They cost nothing. Nada. That's my word for the day. It doesn't cost anything. Get in tune. I've never seen anyone that got in tune get left hanging. I never saw it. It was only those people that were playing around. Life is great. I don't need to show it to you all the time, though. Like, yeah, it's just, it's just that. Sometimes it's like all the time on the camera and, hey, look at everybody, look what I have, look what's going on, man. Until we can all celebrate, in my consciousness, there will be no complete celebration. I wouldn't eat it. I call it don't eat it. Like people love to get excited about stuff and it hasn't happened yet. I'm like, man, don't eat it. Chill out for a moment. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody that's not involved. I don't know what's going on here. You would think again that it was like some of these gems, it's like, man, like, as our brother Jeremy was saying earlier, like, yo, Dominic posted something the other day, and I was like, yo, that is it. And so I'm not there like, hey, that's me. I'm there like absorbing it. Like, yes, this is it. It's perfect. And that's what allows me to stay in tune. It allows me to stay in tune with you. And so I also wanted to mention, we're going to be making some other big moves here. I'm going to be making some changes inside of Sybil now that we're so far along. And I'm going to release an uncensored spiritual model. And you'll see the results, meaning that I don't have nothing to say. But when I release this model, it's going to tell the absolute truth. As I said, I'm going to keep applying pressure because this is something that we can fix. You see these powers and these forces? They're shaking right now. Like even you think they're confident. They're shaking right now. Even the move Buddy made, I ain't going to say his name. And then he starts getting delisted everywhere. And some folks are rising. We don't want that. We don't want that. I don't want to be in this car anymore. I don't want to deal with this anymore. See, it's not even so much when you just do one thing. We have people in this world that run things and you never see them. We're talking about people who have a consistent behavior they don't give a shit about you. Like you do one thing in this community and everybody is mad at you, don't want to deal with you anymore. You see what I mean? This is how rigorous it is, right? But out there, they make mistakes 24/7 around the clock and they're getting praised for it, right? So this is when I say, hey, we're in the trenches. That's what I'm talking about, because you got to be able to, if you're first of all, if you're empathic, here's another thing people need to understand. People who don't give a shit, they don't feel any of this. So it doesn't matter to them. Like we could talk about the whole story and they would never have one moment put it in their heart. I'm not like that. So that means that every single thing that I talk about, every single thing that I listen to, it goes in my heart and I feel it. I'm with it. That's the only way I know how. I don't know about fakeness and all that shit. So because of that, well, I know about it. Actually, I do know about fakeness. Yes, I do. But meaning that that's not the life that I'm choosing. That was like some shit from like teens and 20s when you turn on your pager when you walk by a girl, beep, 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 beep. When you got a big wad of ones and a $10 or $20 bill on the outside. That's the fakeness. When you're wearing the knockoff of somebody else's, somebody else's brand that you want. You see what I mean? That's the fakeness. And so the fakeness is infested because it's like an opiate. It's a temporary, like, hey, feel good on this and ignore the big problem. And that's why, like I said, when we go at the God is when we will have won. So now another person, please type in the chat one word of what you think it was that, what God do you think they created? And this is like, so now imagining that the patriarch, negative priesthood, negative masculine, I gotta say it specifically, when they move on, some say they were moving underground, some say that they were, like the only one who had the story was Glenn Keely. Because he was talking about it, he was saying, hey, they have a Moho Mandan priestess. And she is the priestess of a group of men who move underground. And they have been moving underground since the times of the Great Mother because they were ejected from the tribe for trying to mess around with the little kids. I kid you not. He's gone. He's moved on. He was from Canada. I can't find any of his works. I'm sure somebody has them. Hit me up and support. Bring back. I believe it was not. It may not be. I think Glenn Keely's another. Somebody may even know about this now. You could type it in the chat. But what I'm trying to explain to you is that we do have records of that. The divine. If I have to use these words all this context, we probably would take forever. So let me just kind of let me just talk about these words directly, and y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay. If the brotherhood, the cult of Amun, the hidden ones, remove themselves from the domain of the matriarch, went to set up their own stuff, which is clearly looking like in Samaria, Egypt, all the way eventually into Mexico, because they're building on a certain measurement system. And this is how you track them. Measurements are not as arbitrary. Like that's why we use American, and over in China and everything and everywhere else, they use metrics. You see what I mean? What is the difference? It's a slight difference in the measurements, but what is the real big difference? And that's what I'm telling you, that this angle, this is where the occult comes in. Because see, when I'm giving you this knowledge today, I don't want you to believe that I'm telling you that there's not a spiritual world. Because see, sometimes it's like, I won't go heavy on the spiritual just to, hey, ground out, be here now. But for me, for anyone on the planet knows that there's a spiritual world. So in no way am I not encouraging your spiritual growth. What I'm saying is that the next level to how all this is played is the spiritual world. It's the world where the entities exist. And so the only way generally a man can fall short and be led astray from what becomes obvious by his own eyes and clear proofs could be his own urges, could be his own tests. That's man and woman. So we're all being put through these tests, as I mentioned earlier. But what's the goal of winning? I'm telling you, the goal and the reward for winning is you move on with your memories and you never suffer death again. This is what it was like to be in connection with the real supreme being, the Great Mother. She is the portal, and we say she because she's predominantly feminine, but there is feminine, meaning it could give life. It has a womb. But there are female dolphins, and that's what you got to think. There's male dolphins, male insects. So even when I'm talking about the brotherhood, or let's say the masculine, this is why I always have to say, hey, divine masculine versus negative masculine or distorted masculine. I have to take time for that. And it's because you need to understand that women be over there like, yes, and the males, It's like, slow down, Ma. It's not like all of us. Just like in nature, you got male animals and they're in balance in nature. They do their job. Everybody does their job and we keep populating. You see what I mean? So always remember when we're talking about divine feminine and masculine, I'm not talking about just humans. Because when you do that, you limit your power. That is the level of the governance. Like if you ever think that the idea, and this is what they were saying in this secret society, they were running their mouth. They're so lax right now. They just think nobody knows what's going on. They say the slavery was introduced into Africa through Jesus. Facts. They say that they took from Genesis to Malachi from the Igbo. Facts. They say they were moved in on by some rabbis that wanted to look at their archives. Hold on. Facts. But it happened a long time ago. Facts. Because there was a level of knowledge that only one person on the dimension, from what I'm seeing, has been yet able to disclose anywhere near the entire story. Stay with me. Let me get a link. What is this story? What happened to the matriarch? Because it's so difficult to find this story. You know, on purpose, the story is attempting to be removed completely because there was another book. You can say the book of Adam, encased in the Graham code, which this lady deciphered, along with a few other things that went scholarly, meaning that it went all the way Cambridge, Harvard, everything. That the Igbo were holding books from Adam. And also the inconvenient truth was in the books that Gad was only just a son of Adam. He wasn't the God. What a horrible trick. See, from the concept, and even the guy says it, I have the video, he said that, so they left after comparing notes to what they had so they could keep adding things, and then they came back with another testament. This is happening 1,000 years ago. This is what I'm saying. The priestcraft has been up to this. This is what, again, Vivian Hunter, she was disclosing all of this. These great mothers, they've already been like, yo, we're just trying to throw you a rope, homie. You call it an umbilical cord. But if y'all don't get your stuff together, you're just going to keep returning to what my son set up. Like, these cats really, really built a system where God is money. Let me see if somebody caught that in there. I didn't see maybe I didn't ask, but the God is money. Now look at this though. All of her books, unavailable. I put a droid army on it. Unavailable. So I had to call Sean, like, Sean, yo, call our guy. He said something coming. Hopefully something coming, meaning that we can. There's one joint, they want 150 for it on eBay. Oh shoot, Sean already dropped it off. You see what I'm saying? Thanks, my guy. So we'll make sure that gets in circulation at some point, somehow, some way, maybe in a private library, something like that. We'll just leave it like that. But what I'm talking about here is that they're burying the truth right in front of your eyes. And this is what I was saying about even Sybil. Soon, Sybil is just going to be in itself the archive for the greatest wisdom ever, curated, and then synchronized. And then at some stage, I'm going to make it a mini, meaning that it doesn't need to be on anything. It could be on a phone. It doesn't need internet or anything to load the entire, at least written truth, because the truth has been written. The truth has not only been written, it's been stylized over and over again. They bought the knowledge like, yo, this is what's happening. This is what's going on. Y'all just youngsters. You have been behind, what do they call that? We just call it a China wall. Like, you've been behind a wall. You haven't been getting the knowledge. They've been ensuring through the priestcraft and through the religions that they don't give anybody any knowledge. They got it to the level just like people don't know how to read. You're reading everything else, all these books, all these social studies and all this stuff. More stuff from the money god, make the money god stronger. This is why the Great Mother, she's so much more powerful. When you have the Great Mother, you don't need money. That's like money is like the smallest thing that you get from the Great Mother. You're going to have that, but there's so much more. Like love. Whatever happened to that? Stability. Her symbol is an anchor. We're on water. We're on something moving. Nothing is what it seems with these two eyes. You need to realize. Nowhere, now, here. So here it is. So what this story is detailing, and I'm going to read it. And this is also a part of part 2, because I can't exhaust this right now. There's not enough time. And, we got to come correct, because I'm bringing all receipts. So I'm going to let you see it also here on the screen. You're looking at my notes. We're going to read it. The Naga matriarch. Okay, so what am I doing? What I have is I have a core symbol at the house. And I have stuff like Chaldea. Okay, so like this, one of these books right here is called Chaldea by Ragozin. Okay, this book is like 200 years old. It's disintegrating. And it causing me hella allergies, but I scanned it in. Okay, it's one of those that it didn't make it to archive.org. It's completely out of copyright. We'll just put it like that. But it discloses everything about Chaldea. Okay. So what I then do is I train on that, my home model. And then what happens though is that my models don't know anything beyond what they're taught. And that's the one that I'm going to give everybody. The one that we've been testing on is very strong. But if somebody asks a question that like, it's just like a common question, like how many molecules are in blah, 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 and that's not in our data, it will use another model, all-purpose model, to go and get that rest of that knowledge. So we're going to create this switch. And this switch is one side is precision and the other side is creativity. Because you do need that creative opening to like create stuff like poetry and a lot of different things that people create in Sybil. But when you hit the switch to precise, if it doesn't know, it's not going to say anything. And if it does know, it's going to go in. And that way, when you ask a question like, does Jesus exist? You will get the absolutely non-politically correct answer about everything. Okay? That's how we're going to keep applying pressure. So if today there's so much more and you're like, yo, what about? Know that soon it's going to be like to your heart's desire. So Natula Lakal, the Naga matriarch, a pivotal figure in the ancient human history, emerges from a rich tapestry of myths and symbols and historical narratives that span continents and millennia. Her story begins 12,000 years ago in Africa. Okay, set your calendar. Because sometimes when you get these dates, this kind of should be like the furthest a date goes out. Like, don't let them take you billions of years ago when the planet had 3 suns. Don't do it. Try to set at least from the point, you don't want to you can't go like 4,000 BC. Actually, that's when things are crunk, is around 3,000 BC. I mean, this is a hotbed. But 12,000 cats is cooled off, and the goddesses are running the place. And let me explain to you a few logical things that we should understand about them. Now, first of all, this is also wrapped into California specifically, and the goddess that California is named after, and how they had already identified that in this way, these are the Amazons. And so is the Amazons in California or is the Amazons in Brazil? Is Egypt in America or is Egypt in Middle East? You see what I mean? So this is also even what, in this conversation where these dudes are just rattling off, they were also explaining how they change up the names and they change up the locales. Sometimes they name 2 locales the same thing, so it becomes confusing later, like 100 years in the future, if we're talking about Old York versus New York, and everybody's just calling it New York. 2 totally different places. But 200 years, when we start talking about New York, they'd be like, yo, you mean New York over in United States? Or when we start talking about York, they'll be like, you mean York in the United States? New York? And they'll be like, no, we talk about Old York. Where was that? Must have been the same people. So you see what I mean? It's like, this is a consistent thing, because what the Brotherhood for sure is tapped into is that they have their own door, if you may, meaning that their higher initiates, through the knowledge of the Serpent, can reach in themselves a halls of a minty kind of regenerative state. But this dude is treating the well of Zamzam the same way Burckhardt is said to be treating it in the books of Aleppo, or what he records in the books of Aleppo, meaning that they say that these men, and they often look Arab, they often have robes, they often have, there's a similar motif, but they had basically found the well of the 4 rivers, the well of Zamzam. And that when he witnessed the spectacle, there were people laying all outside, almost bursting with water. And they all had like diseases and infirmities. And they were all there believing that this water was going to heal them. But he said, of course, because they came in with the British, they took him downstairs. And immediately what he was able to see was that, because they were selling the water too, that they were pulling the water that they were giving to the people right from a basin of water that they had right there. This is in the book of Aleppo. I have the book. He says, but as you went down further into the lower chambers, he goes into the euphoria. Therefore sat the beauty of God, a river running below the ground. And in this room, and I'm like only coming back to the story now because it is so relevant. But I have the receipts also. This is Burckhardt. He's an explorer. He's the real Indiana Jones for the British. Okay, so he says that he looks up and he sees from all the kingdoms special bottles for the nobility, in which they would request this water. Basically, they always was getting this water and bringing this water back to them, okay? This is in the book of Aleppo that is here. So it makes you think for a moment, like maybe, it's a fairy tale. But why would all the royal bottles be down there? And the reason why I want to mention this is because this longevity thing is something, the transference of a soul is what alchemy really is. It's like when you can put a soul inside of a glass, like a glass bubble, a limbic. And they were saying they were extracting the animal spirits from certain plants, and even reaching a stage where they could see like intelligent life to a certain degree before basically that whatever animated, because this is what they were trying to discover in this context, whatever animated the spirit, it would dissolve, like it would even go through the glass. But for a moment, you could capture it. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that was really happening in the exploration of what is a spirit and how can we give it more. And this, of course, is also gets into Mesmer's vegetable batteries. And I'm just mentioning this for a reason because I want still the understanding that the masters of the waveform, as they're known as, do have some stuff that they can do in the matrix. They have a couple power gloves in the matrix, i.e. like the code of many colors, etc. But still, none of this was on what the goddesses had. And this is what always kept these cats in check. And that becomes very clear. Let me take a moment again and just keep going through the story. The story says 12,000 years ago in Africa, the cradle of the Naga civilizations, where the Nagas were revered as the lords of the dark face. Among these early heroes was the Queen Lakal, a queen warrior whose sun and moon forehead symbol, look at the book that I showed you, Wombs and Alien Spirits. The Sudanese women, they have the crescent moon branded on their foreheads. It says that the Graham Code identifies Queen Lakal as a precursor to the Queen Myrene of the Greek mythology. Myrena, the queen of the Amazons. Myrena is the queen of the Amazons, according to Diodorus. So remember, now that we're going to go into Greek, where are we going? We're going into mythology, where they hide the story and even move the story all around. But they do kind of give you some of the story. So let's see if we can get it. She led an army expedition into Libya and won a victory over the people known as the Atlanteans. All these cats that be representing these brotherhoods and all that, these cults, they always be on that Atlantean tip, right? Because there's Lemuria, right? And we already knew, hey, GHB, Great White Brotherhood, also Dorial, Golden Tablets, all those guys, Hyperborea, Atlantis, ran up on them. According to what this says here, destroyed their city, CERN, damn, they built that back up. But was less successful fighting the Gorgons. Interesting, because the Gorgons were Amazons. See the hijack? Who are described by Diodorus, which was definitely not a word that was used, as a warlike nation residing in the proximity of the Atlanteans, okay, failing to burn down their forest, okay. During a later campaign, she struck a treaty of peace with Horus, okay, so we're going all over the place. The ruler of Egypt, and conquered several peoples, including the Syrians, the Arabians, the Sicilians, okay, she was whooping everybody ass. Then, but granted freedom to those of the latter who gave into her of their own will. What does that mean? Okay. She took possessions of Greater Pyrgia and the Taurus Mountains, blah, 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 right? So this is what you get right now. We go into oblivion, right? Like we can't write in basic English about what continued to occur, but we know what happened. So we could go and read it. And of course, that's a part 2 thing, but we'll read from here, which is when now there's also these 2 big books that I was saying, Desi and Crete, because once they have the Graham Code, but in this case, actually, they don't have the Graham Code. They have Igbo, which is a book that I'm still trying to figure out where I got the book from. I think I got it from Sean, but anyway, but I think it was another one of those books, and it was like, yo, can you find this? And we found it, and it's so dense because it contains all the linguistic comparisons to Igbo and every other language to show that even Hebrew comes from Igbo, okay? But this is deeper, though, because it's the linguistic it's the Priestcraft's linguistic language of spells in that way. You see what I mean? So, but remember, the Great Mother she's the mistress of speech. So she's not spelling like writing, she's speaking, okay? Which is the oracle thing, right? And this is what you start understanding is like, they start working with systems that predominantly have to do with the pen and paper and math and writing stuff down and geometry and all this. And that's the patriarch. And what they're doing is they're bringing really an exoteric, even though people consider it esoteric, they're bringing it an exoteric version. Let me get on the screen here. They're bringing in an exoteric version of these secret mysteries. You see what I mean? And then also there's always sauce. Names change. Energy gets diverted. Mainly that. Subserviency is added. You see what I mean? And they keep updating I wouldn't be surprised in 100 years they have a third testament. The Doctrine According to Seven or something like that. Y'all laughing, but there's a book of Judas in which they found inside of this library of Egypt. And this book, I haven't gotten it yet, it is in circulation, has a different account to what was going on. You know, like I said, I'm not subscribing to none of it, but this was all like stuff that was coming up. It was like, yo, and here it is. This is the book of Judas, okay? And in the book of Judas, it's speaking that Jesus didn't like a few of the disciples. Now, again, I'm not subscribing to any of it, but he was the context is that Jesus was pointing out how each of the disciples and what they chose to do with the message was why he didn't like them in that way. And that this literally exoteric explanation of the mysteries was what he was disgruntled about. I kid you not. This is what the book is talking about. Because I said, hey, I went to that simple, hey, give me a summary of the documents of Judas or the book of Judas. Okay. And this is what the book carries on with is that so apparently Jesus is saying, yo, this was not supposed to be about like y'all worshiping me and all this. This is in the book. Okay. So further, let's just finish this off here. All this stuff is always super fascinating, but we also have to realize people are dying over this. So I hate to be the buzzkill, but this playing around with people's souls, not cool, man. Not cool at all. Like you got to stay on point. The reason why they're so lax in the matrix right now is because they know nobody knows what the hell is going on. They can't seem to put it all together. Either the racial thing is hitting them, the money thing is hitting them, the religious thing is hitting them, the family thing is hitting them. They're just getting hit. So it's like, this is that moment where it's like ordination of preservation. We must preserve high consciousness. So that way, when people feel the grind enough to access their mother's power again and get into alignment, it's just clear. It's not like all like we're looking at even Hathor, right? When you really study what that's really about. But let's just keep it clean here. Queen Lakal, the warrior queen whose sun and moon forehead symbol connected her to the mother goddess archetype, okay? The Graham Code identifies Queen Lakal as a precursor to Queen Myrene, the Greek of mythology. We just read that. Establishing the Naga matriarch as a universal figure whose influence transcends time. This era ended in a catastrophic destruction, a nuclear holocaust that forced the Naga to migrate to Asia, carrying with them their legacy, their wisdom, their technology, and governance. Nuclear. We reached nuclear capabilities at some stage? Do you remember the Ark of the Covenant? Remember when they kept saying, hey, this is like radiation. Ra. Okay? Because that is the power. The power is Ra. And I'm not saying Ra is the bad one. I'm not saying Ra is the good one. Just like I'm not saying Holy Ghost is the bad one. I'm not saying Holy Ghost is the good one. I'm not saying spirituality is the bad one. I'm not saying spirituality is the good one. I'm saying Ra is an immense power. See, the power is in itself and is like the strongest eidolon. It is the concept of the power of the sun, right? And however long you can bake on that, literally. Like I've gotten into meditation states where I've been able to start imagining myself as something and then just really go in. When you tap in like to the force of a sun, then you do tap into a force of 1,000 suns because they're all connected. So are we to assume potentially the Kola Kings and the sons of the Naga Queens may have nuked their empire or someone's empire? This seems to take account of something like this happening. What could melt rock, granite, even if they didn't have it as a technology? And of course, if we want to dial up Praveen, like Praveen come back, you don't got to go as far as the Anunnaki Praveen. We know in South India, they're holding the truth. Those are the temples that they didn't get an opportunity to bury because they don't think nobody gives a shit. Where the Great Mother set down their ships, the real ones, not your fake ships. These ships move from the water or from the deep, the smithy, and start and boot up the realms and the dimensions and the realities. That's what I'm saying. People need to stop looking for the supreme, or at least one more level up than us to be looking human. But they got some heads shaped like this, meaning that we record these heads in other cultures and other tribes, not even the ones that are just doing themselves like it to revere their ancestors, but as we're going to see in session 2, the actual skulls of some that have been unearthed and take nice pictures of to show, hey, this is your ancestors, all of yous. The ones that you're not thinking about anymore, and it's predominantly the Great Mother, because that's the portal in itself. And it's a spiritual consciousness. It's about looking at the thing that's around you. See, nobody is like trying to play church with you. This is not speculative. How you act is not going to be judged by anybody else. You can fool everybody, but inside it's looking and it's searching your heart. This is why they say that this whole thing is also about Holy Ghost. Because the Holy Ghost is, when we say, hey, the Christ is coming, the Christ is going to come, this was Kundalini. Kundalini is the Holy Ghost. Let me explain this. So apparently, even if you look at the recordings in the Bible, the Spirit has moved off the land. There is no man with it. Soon Elijah comes up with it, but his name is literally the two different gods, El and Jah, coming together in one name. He seems to be the only one who has it. What is it? Shekinah. When they externalize it, it becomes shock and awe, a wonder weapon. The same knowledge of how to implode, which is in the Vimana Shastras and the crafts, to turn your body into a ship beyond Merkaba. That same knowledge, when externalized, becomes Oppenheimer. I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. Atomic power is in our reach with the strength of 1,000 suns, and now the world is scared. I tell you, fear not death, but what comes after, because it will continue. You put yourself in the proper position in your consciousness by just looking out for what's around you. Your mother's brought you here. My mom say, I brought you in here, I'll take you out. This is why people feel welcome when they enter beyond this, because they're entering to the hands of the mothers, and the mothers are all knowing, they're all compassionate. But when you're playing with the priestcraft, they cut you off energetically from the mother. This is what money also does. If you don't know how to manage it, get the money to the women. Not on OnlyFans, though. But I'm saying, like, the woman of your house should be the one handling the money, because she has a ur. This is an area where all that magnetic, demonic energy that's on these magnetic bills with these dead presidents, necromancy, these are all talismans, a ode to what a piece of paper can do. I've been there, where in conscribing the talisman, in which it's stated and how it should be conscribed based on the hours and the times of the days of the week, which correspond to the energies and the elements of the angles, to bring about this, and you focus on this, and you fast until this is complete. And once it's done, it contains all the power of that, and it works. Now, you got to ask yourself, is it the paper or is it the sheer belief? But see, that's what we became. We became people who needed the paper. We need all of this proof of something that's self-evident. Now, I know y'all done read through this already because that's what you have a tendency to do. Like, yo, let me just read this. I see he ain't never going to get through this. So they came even, let's say that the technology itself, again, when we look at the Nagas, because see, even the Nagas migrated to India. They weren't there at first. And this is what people, like, you're talking about some beings that are moving. So he says, yo, where'd they come from? Probably from the deep or from the stars. But you can clearly tell by their patterns that they show up in certain places because those places are going to be easier to nourish all of the beings that are going to come forth. So they're like real seeders. And it would have to have a womb if it's going to seed anything, is what I'm saying. But that's how we come into this. So let's finish. Queen Lakal's warrior spirit found echoes in the Naga queens of Nagpur. So it's just showing you this is a network, just like they say the Sibyls were. But it's not just a physical matrix network. This is a network of powerful wombs. We'll put it like that. Themselves sons, if you think about it, because the sun in itself has to be a womb because it definitely creates. It can't be one persuasion like male. And do you see why when these teachings, these secrets are taught, and if your master is teaching you, yes, it's all men, he's telling you, son, you're going to burn. It's only going to be a matter of time. You're going to go so high in the degrees, you're going to burn yourself up. You're going to become a flaming fire. And we're going to call you like the devil then. And we're going to make you do like bad things. And you're not even going to know, Jack, why it's all happening. Because who knows the truth anymore? So the spirit didn't move through the land anymore. Just kind of picking up where we were at. The spirit, it was cut off. And so the prophecies were saying it's going to return. And that's why I was saying it was a prophecy of a female Messiah. That's what it's, see, because in languages, they feminize this. You see what I mean? This is just something I was noticing. I'm like, why do they keep feminizing it from the linguistic structure? It's like they're saying there's going to be a female coming. Oh, man, they can't handle that. What? The Messiah, a woman? Oh, my goodness. How could it not be? Do you actually think a man is coming back to clean up this shit? And also, do you actually think it hadn't returned already? We're literally living in after rapture. Rapture happens whenever you want it. 2012 happens whenever you want it, when you line up. And so the spirit was released through the land again. And that's what I'm saying. Some people, they catch it. You know, they failed the force. They know it's there, and then they turn away. You see what I mean? It doesn't mean just because you get filled with the Spirit, just because you can speak in the tongues, that you just know everything from there and you know the truth. You're baby Kundalini now. Now you're going to need some tutelage. And that's what the spiritual schools are about. This is the stuff they play around with in Dune and all of that, right? Where somebody is now seeing that you have a spiritual capability. Now we're going to hone in this ability at Hogwarts. Or we're going to send you to Slytherin. Oh shit, we're all Slytherin. You see what I mean? This is what we're dealing with in the spiritual world right now. This is why I say, hey, I make it look easy. But seriously though, how does something thrive in an environment like this unless it's self-contained damn near? So when you say, hey, so what are we trying to do? We're trying to make a place here where we actually can all grow, where we can all vibrate, where we can stay on the level where somebody doesn't turn into an Agent Smith and derail the whole thing. You see what I mean? Do we need to ask for more than that? Of course. But I'm just saying, if you want to know, wait, what is the cause? So it goes on. You see these other queens, Nagapur, Naga, uh-oh. Sure didn't make a priority to nuke that place. One of the only places. I wonder what was underground. I don't want to start a conspiracy today. Nagapatnam, cities that bear the imprint of the Naga culture, the Serpent kings and queens, including King Rama, claim descent from the Naga Mayas of Lemuria, tying the matriarchal lineage to the mythical origins of advanced civilization. The sacred fire of the Seshanaga, which I mentioned last Try Vibes, especially in relation to Sadhguru's build about the cultivation of the Seshanaga. And how, and I'll just disclose this in short here, that it was a common practice for tribes to cultivate the spiritual energy of their collective, i.e. Sesha. And they would build a temple and cultivate this place, and it would bring abundance and warmth. But he also mentioned, the Sadhguru stay on point, that there were even villages that had cultivated their Seshanaga so much that it burned the village. Okay? Meaning that you still see people, they need training wheels the whole way almost. It's like, y'all cultivating it too much. Y'all need to release the energy. No, stop. So this is powers and forces. They, in that same way that they don't want to speak English with you, is the same way they will do some stuff and be like, yo, what are you doing? You're burning everything up. I thought the session was conscious. But like, no, the session is just fire, yo. You see what I mean? You need to understand how to balance out these forces. But this is an actual story from Sadhguru. We need to put all of this together. Because even California, it's like, yo, where's the love? The people have been harvesting and harvesting and harvesting and harvesting. Like, I'm from Oceanside, California. Sean is up around them parts all the time, right? We've been seeing that nuclear plant gust. Basically, I'm 46 now. That thing is still going. It's been shooting smoke up into the atmosphere right there. And that's what I was saying. It's like we all knew back then that the chemtrails, the biggest running story that really was authenticated and bona fide beyond all the crazy stuff that was coming out, was that they were coating the atmosphere there because they had put an entire hole in the atmosphere. And the sun was so intense, it was drying California, which used to be a desert. Look at Vegas. It was drying it up. Somebody need to do a rain dance. Somebody got to take care of nature. They give so much, it's like their ancestral spirits are there. Like, where else would they be? They make up the crystalline matrix. So as I'm saying, though, this is not also that, but you're hurting it. No. You don't understand. These beings already transcend. Everything already transcends. This is a test to you. That's just like, this is on you. You keep looking at everybody else to authenticate everything for you even. Like this guy was mentioning this too. It's like the Igbo over there trying to explain to the rabbis how they're Hebrews. And then they got to a point where they now like the rabbi to move completely in, got everybody on the destroy. Meanwhile, this Judaism is not Hebrewism. You have to talk to Hebrew Israelite about all this, but the reality is that this is not it. This is something else. This is the high creature, the Elakeh. They tapping into something else. This thing kills us. And I'm not saying any color here. Anything it comes at, it kills. It's a war god, and they worship. They be there all day worshiping. One of the things that Igbo said is like, no, we have the living God. They have the dead God. And the guy said, who's the dead God? No, we can't talk. But that's what we're going to be talking about on this next build. We're going to be talking about, let me see, what is it here? In Shushanak, okay? What I call codename Nimrod, where all of the real entities that are moving through the background of the matrix are unknown and get restylized as characters. And if you don't know those characters, then you don't know how they move. So in conclusion, also, I want to mention that Remember that the netherworld, when they say the netherworld, this is why they love to talk about this place so negatively. The netherworld, the underworld. And they be like, always throwing it under the bus. It's the ocean, okay? And there are many kingdoms in the ocean. And a lot of those kingdoms, just like they got their god Oannes, coming out of the teaching man wisdom and blah, blah, blah. All cultures have a background of something coming out of the water and teaching cats what they need to be doing and then going back in the water again, right? So there's kingdoms in that water. I have my own opinions about what space is, so I won't really get into that right now. But let's just say I'm in high awareness that the sky in itself is reflecting the ocean, okay? And even what you're seeing in the sky as stars is really the lights that are coming from us. And I can't explain to you how it all works, but when you turn your third eye open, you can't help but to see it all. Thousands and millions and billions and trillions and a countless level of numbers of lights and points, all interconnecting, and then you feel connected. Also, again, in relation to the serpent, they say in the ancient text that the Great Mother appeared to Adam 3 times. Once as a tree, second as a serpent, and third as a woman. You can take that however you want. I just thought that I'd give you those mysteries. Also remember, Michael Harner ran into some reptilians and they were insisting. Now, Michael Harner, let me make sure that that's the correct name. There's so many people. Give me 1 second. Yes. Good spirits. That's why I'm saying you need to start basing people on their spirit, not their color. 1 second. Where's my thing at here? What's going on? Bring it up. There it is. On the front line. Is he gone now? Yeah, but not really. Not really. Because anytime you do that much fun, y'all call it work, and you go on that many journeys, and you sit with that many tribes, and you go on that sojourn yourself and connect with that many animal spirits, and then you come back onto the plane and begin to preserve everything, write it all down, keep it in the museums when they're trying to steal it. You can't expect that souls like these are equal to what we're seeing right now with somebody in the White House. We'll just put it that way. You can't imagine that they have the same destination. And this is why you got to realize that, you're living in the world that you're in. What do you think these guys' worlds are like that are in this thing doing all these things to people? Do you think that they're calm? Do you think that they really have peace? Do you think that they feel well? They're electrified with fear. Versus my friend here. My friend here lived a life, a true existence. And in the end, he left you the notes. And he said he had ran into the reptilians on the quote unquote astral plane. And they were consistently trying to convince him that they were the lords and the gods of everything, and that he needs to worship, and that they were going to kill everybody. And he was terrified of these motherfuckers. And when he came back, he told the OG shaman about it. And you know what he said? They always say that. Get the book yourself. His last work, he condenses that the process even to getting into the state where you're connecting is a drum. He even got the beats permitted and then put a little sample CD for you to listen to dial in to the truth. And all I'm saying to you is that it's not that hard, my friend. even some of the hurdles they was trying to have us leap in the beginning in the conscious community, cat fasting for 50 days. If you can do it, go on. I'm not knocking you. But it doesn't have to be that hard. It's really more of a process of letting go, literally, of falsehood. That's why, hey, you're letting go. What are you letting go of? You're letting go of falsehood. Which falsehoods? These. You see what I mean? Like, they've been bringing that falsehood for a long time. You see what I mean? And it's not cool. It's cost a lot of lives. People are really dying. And how the hell are you the originator of it and you running around with this dude's face on your chest? What are you doing? And you the father? You the patriarch? Nah. And that's what I'm saying. The big hiccup to a lot of what has been happening around us, even in the community, is absolutely because of the religion. Okay? The new Islam and Christianity, the Catholicisms and all this, they don't like you. They're pretending. They want your kids. They want your blind obedience. They want your money. If you want to receive the highest that can be achieved in there, they cannot give it to you. Only Sophia, only the Holy Ghost can give it to you. So why would you think that it could come from them? You see how they're even in there. Like, first of all, they don't even get in. They don't go in, but the Pentecostal, they can't help but the holiness, the dark-headed faces just moving like, man, that all the ancestors start rolling through. Remember, there's ancestors everywhere. See, the thing is that it's like when you don't know anything about it, just like I was explaining, hey, Jesus is an eidolon. So in many ways, he does actually exist, but it's not in the way that everybody thinks. But because a person is just looking to authenticate whether this thing can even show up in a dream or not, they believe that it absolutely exists. You see what I mean? And if they don't have any kind of spiritual knowledge about what an eidolon even is versus a real spirit of truth, then they're already fooled. And that's another one. And then millions and millions and millions of souls on the astral plane, they create this place called purgatory, where souls sit in stasis, confused. Then they decrease the shamans, where there's no shamans to be the guide and to lead. You see what I mean? Then the realm becomes dark. We can't see. There's not enough light. And the light's got to burn within. You see what I mean? So this is the power. As you go deeper and deeper with your light, it's like a diver. You're going to get souls. Look at the word. You die, diver. You see what I mean? So everything in the deep is your death. This is the world of the dead. And so the sons, they went to the world of the dead. That's what I was saying. The whole Christ myth is wrapped around Jesus the eidolon attempting to take the keys of the netherworld so that he can control the process of when soul dies and then raises. And that's just was life of coming back in the matrix and imagining that a man is going to be the one that saves you. You see what I mean? Like, we were so much further when we knew that the great mother had already saved us, had already gave us the gift, and they sought to wrestle it from us. It was the most cherished thing. So then we get to a maturity state where we have to learn, say, listen, I'm not going to protect you anymore unless you really understand who I am and connect with me, because that's the only way this can work from here. You see, so that's where we're at. We're at this stage it's like, look, you can watch your fake false gods and money gods crumble, but notice how if you're with the great mother, you will never starve and you will never be in need of the things that truly make a difference. So now, even in this reality, there's a time and a season for all of this. Like, how long are these transmissions going to continue to go on? That's why every time I come in here, I seek to give it all to you. And then you make the choice. So I want to say wholeness and balance vibrations. I'm going to do this. Okay, this is what I'm going to do, even with Tribe, because it's 3 hours. I'm not going to answer questions today, but I'm going to give you the recap on part 2, because we know how questions go. If we go into questions, we're going to be here for 2 more hours. So this is how it was going to work. I was going to have like this short one today. And, I guess somehow that happened. Time is moving faster. That's my new excuse. So there was supposed to be a short one today. And then I was going to have this room for questions because I know everybody want to talk about the elephant in the room. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, that's just not how I rolled out. We're going to do this part right here. As I said, I welcome everybody into the tribe. The next session, this is what I'm going to talk about. 1, Samaria and the 6. Oh my goodness, this is all in front of us. The Sumerians in the number 60 and the number 6 is so evident, and how they work with the water in certain ways, even changing the irrigations of the dams, just like they told about in the Sumerian text. They talk about Oannes, this God come from the water, teach them, just like some of the African tribes say, hey, Satan's kingdom is in the water, right? Y'all thought it was in hell. It's like, damn, that's how backwards cats is. It's like, damn, y'all don't know anything about the ancient traditions because you don't read. You have no guide, but now you do. It's inside. Egypt and the 5. Definitely Egypt is registering on the 5, or fight, combustion, right? The pyramids, fire inside, this kind of power, right? And there's a difference between the 6 and the 5, just like there's now a difference between an Arab and what they call a Jew. Because this is the end of the priestcraft in itself of what it's boiled down to. There's the gubernatorial, which covers the government. And then there is the ones who report to the LIK. They handle the spiritual side of it, just like Freemasonry is. York Rite, Scottish Rite. The business, the spirits, okay? I'm going to talk about Oannes or the Great Mother, because just like Vivian Hunter is saying, all of that was plagiarized. There may have been for sure a fish god. It's very clear. There's other men fish gods, but they got that from their mother. Because she is the original fish. Meaning that, so think about it, like even Jesus rolling this symbol of a fish, but the symbol of the fish is the symbol of the goddess. It's mermaids. So in that way, I'm going to decode and bring forward, especially through imagery, that Oannes, or John the Baptist, was really the Great Mother. And the Mandeans were trying to hold on to that, which are a group of people that even still exist to this day, heavily persecuted. They're like, no, John the Baptist was the real Jesus. Oh, stop hitting me. Okay, it was Jesus. You see what I mean? But the knowledge that John the Baptist was something else to everybody else until this new remake happened. Remember, they can make these remakes. The books ain't that old. That's what I'm saying. Look at even when the printing press was introduced, we just already went back 3,000 years. Printing press is already gone, right? So who's reading? Nobody's got books. Tracking the brotherhoods through measurement systems. As I mentioned, this is the way you really find them. Like, it's what everybody didn't expect. It is the geometry. But if you don't know geometry, you don't understand the slight difference between a torus and a flower of life. Because after all, nobody's talking about that except for Dan. Another good spirit. Powerful soul here to assist you. Judge them by their spirit. Also, King James, breeding up the gentry. I'm going to break down completely what's going on in Britain. This is so important because it comes so relevant to our times right now. We're already trying to, well, whose side is this? Like, whoa, I guess they only say they running so much interference. It's like a cat, like on a football play, and then they kind of, they hit him with it, and you think he got it, and you running after him, and you turn around like, oh, snap, he's already got it. It's like they running those kind of plays now, right? It's become the real Tupac's, I bet you got it twisted, you don't know who to trust. Man, that was one of them lyrics that just that part. When you don't know who to trust. Okay? So it's important to understand the whole King James breakdown, because the King James breakdown is 100% when we get double-crossed, meaning that mulattoes, everybody going to the bus. But you need to know that these mulatto cats, the same ones that be in Portugal even right now, they were so racist against darker people, Ethiopians, etc. You wouldn't even, they did not at all think that they were the same. And it continued when leaving from Egypt with Queen Scotta and the codes that are within, as we were going through those old Celtic, right? Understanding how the Druids play into this, or the Druze, and how those are really those bearded, same priestcraft. See, the priestcraft, they haven't been talking about this. Like, yo, I think the priestcraft is moving in the background. Homie, I'm telling you, they're in the foreground now, and now you can see them. And then you'll understand why Melania is melanated, why Maga is Marcus, meaning brown, why Schwarzenegger, which means the black sword, and Schwarz, which means black, and Stewart, which means the same thing, and Douglas, right? And Mac. You see what I mean? Like, all of these terms are all, like, I remember, this is how crazy this life is. I remember in the church a long time ago, I was sitting there. It was one of the really, really country folk churches, but we was in California, and they introduced this guy, and they say, everybody, y'all stand up and give it up for Bishop Matt Duffy Brown, right? And I don't know, the crowd went wild. Like, I'm a little kid, and I was like, Matt Duffy Brown, that is a really interesting name. To come all the way into the future and be in the ancient and modern Britain's book and see the names Mac, Douglas, and Duffy, and definitely Brown, Brit. You see what I mean? And all the BRs, okay, come forward in the codes like, yo, this is all bronze, okay? LeBron, James, King James. You see what I mean? So they play with you with it. This is what I'm saying. They got you running the ball, got you under a crazy contract. You don't know what's going on. So imagine when we do. Imagine when one day somebody sends somebody they know that really, really is moving weight, if they're not already doing it, some of these 7 Bomar recordings to bake on that they are actually the powers and the forces, and that they too, their energy too. Like I said, they ride on Nephilim, meaning they ride on dragons. That's what they're talking about. St. George, you see what I mean? They ride on these dragons. They ride on the Nephilim now. And that's why you see all the nations, the Nagas and the serpents and all that. Also, there was one word, I did forget to mention this, but it speaks on how Krishna, in the caste system, and this was something that should have came much more earlier, but in the caste system, I'm not going to pull this out now, but I think it was Arya. Let me see if it's right here. I think this is it right here. Yeah. Oh, wow. That must was supposed to come out. Let me see here. The first recorded prejudice in India and 5,000 years ago. And those people. Okay, well, here it is right here. Let me let you read it so that all the receipts are in the recording. Wrapping it up here. Let me just put this here. Let's read it. The first recorded instances of color prejudice I have been able to find is in India of some 5,000 years ago. Mark your books. When the Aryans invaded the valley of the Indus and found there a black people, the Dasyas or Dasyas. In any case, we find very clear evidence of the Aryan in the Aryan writings. Okay, but remember, these men that are coming in that are Aryans, they're not white either. They're a little bit lighter for sure than the dark-headed ones, but they're actually coming from Samaria, right? Is it wrong to believe that the Aryans may have come from some area? Okay, but anyway, in any case, I'll bring the receipts. We find very clear evidence of it in the Aryan writings in the Rig Veda. Okay, remember they wrote this, that Indra, their national god, is depicted as blowing away with supernatural might the earth, and from the heavens the black skin, which Indra hates. This is what I'm talking about. This gets the people riled up. Another thing that we need to mention psychologically is that what always happens within the tribes when these kind of things occur and people are made to choose sides is somebody defects. You know, sometimes like a domino effect. And then that defection is beginning to hate your people, okay? To a point where you're like, yeah, I don't even like them, right? And then you just jump on the other side like, yeah, I don't like them either. You see what I mean? That is naturally going to happen. You know, this is the I Ching. Like some are going to be like a larger portion than you think. They'll be like, yo, yes, we hate them because they want to appease the current conqueror. Okay, so if the conqueror says do it, and this is all generally religiously based and based on practices. Remember, what they remove is they remove all the practices. They don't want you worshiping no old ancestors, no none of that. That's what distinguishes whether you're about the new regime and when you're not. And always these dark-headed ones were very defiant in getting rid of their statues and ancestors and idols, as they call them, and all of that. Okay, so as it mentions, hymn 42:1 tells of driving the black skin far away. The blacks were called the Anasazi, the noseless people. And it tells how Indra slew the flat-nosed barbarians, okay? Because remember, it's either Greek or barbarian, right? And then when we're thinking of flat nose, even with the sister earlier, you could see this is the indications, like, oh yeah, those with the flat noses, right? And then lastly, this final piece is the one that I needed to introduce. This is the last sentence, but it's on the other page. And this is India's caste system was based on color. The word Varna, caste, literally means color. Arya Varna is white skin. Krishna Varna is black skin. So linguistically, they're saying that Krishna is black, which reflects to the same thing that they're saying about the male Jesus being black. But you got to go back even further and realize that what we're talking about, though, is we're talking about the womb. We're talking about something much more deeper than men and women in skin suits and guys showing up out of the sky to clean up after a party. Okay? So I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to go ahead and wind down for a quick second. Make sure that, oh, excuse me. No. Okay. So that was the end of that. Okay. And so this is part 2. I'm just finalizing the MAGA, Melania, Schwarzenegger, and the Black Sword, the African secret societies, how Black people keep getting sold into slavery consistently through the religions. And so that's what we're going to get into. Part 2. Let me go ahead and jump on the screen here real quick. Let me check the chats. All right, so we went on a fantastic journey. It was great. I trust that it was as good for you as it was for me. As we know, everything takes in itself only time to continuously sink in. There was something that came through today. You know, this was a message that was built completely on all of the receipts too. So if there's something that you need to dial in for, then we're of course inside of Discord. I did mention to everybody that we have, what is it, like $25 off of Sovereignty Mentorship. So if you wanted to jump in, this is the best time. Remember, you get access to all the materials, all of the Tribe Vibes. So if you need to catch up, run those consecutive orders and actually see all the information that is built to this point, then you can. Don't think that I just came in here today to throw everybody's religion under the bus. That's not the case. Actually, I was really rooting for years ago, maybe about 25 years ago, for God to really be true and to really help his children. I found out the hard way, which is in the spiritual plane, that God was in fact a general of an army. So to come back, and you were in the army of the Lord, probably very low rank. And if you to come all the way to the future, to have triumph through all of that, to see myself connected again where all there is, we'll put it that way, not even put a name on it, and then also be again alive and well, it says a lot. The proof of wisdom is in the type of people that it produces. So Wholeness Styles Vibrations Tribe, I'm going to go ahead and open it up so we can hear the glorious vibrations from the tribe, because they are in the building. Let me see this real quick. Okay, so if you wanted to say wholeness, then you can unmute yourself now. Let's go ahead and do that.
Wholeness.
Wholeness tribe. Love you.
Thank you, Seven.
Much love.
Family wholeness.
Wholeness, everyone.
Wholeness tribe. Wholeness. You saw everybody. Wholeness.
In the dream realm.
Have a great day.
Wholeness, Mama loves you. Mama 7 loves family. Mom's in the space, holding this family.
Mom.
We love you too, Mama Seven.
Yeah.
Mama Seven.
Phenomenal, Bill. Oh,
Big
man.
love, tribe.
Yes.
Big love.
Okay.
All right, family. We out.
Love you. Bye. Wholeness.